Dysfunctional vet. This block of instruction on Captain and Master Gardener will concentrate on soil sampling methods and procedures. I'll be sending a sample to Texas Agricultural Mechanical University, also known as Texas A&M, as well as doing a home pregnancy kit from Lowe's. The home pregnancy kit for your phosphorus, nitrogen, and such are available from a number of places, including such things as feed stores, Tractor Supply, and places like that. This one just happens to be from Lowe's. We will then, when I get the sample back from the lab, we'll be comparing the sample from the home pregnancy test with the lab results to see what the difference between the two are and which one is the best option for you. The home pregnancy test cost approximately 11 something, close to 12. The sample done at a laboratory under laboratory conditions cost $12. So basically it's apples and apples as far as cost is concerned. So let's move on to soil sampling. Now this is the garden area that we're going to be surveying. That upright T-post with the rusted shovel that I found out here, I have no idea where that came from. Comes across over here to this other T-post, which is right there, and then back along the garden back here, and you'll see those T-posts. That's where I tried to grow some grapes and they didn't make. So I'm going to move the grapes to a new location and hope for better success. Now there's a garden area behind those high weeds right there, and we'll be taking a soil sample from that, but I'm not going to record it because what I'm doing here is exactly what I'll be doing there. Now the first order of business is to know exactly the surface area that we have here. This is going to come back to when we have to add some type of plant nutrient to the soil. We need to be able to calculate the proper amount. So let's start with actually measuring the distances here. Our garden at this point is 22 feet 7 inches. We're going to call it 23 feet. Now we're going to measure the run this way down to the length and see where it comes out. Alright, we run the tape measure. As we come up here, this white line that you see in the ground is a irrigation system for the grapes that didn't make. We're sitting right at 58 feet. Zoom in. We're sitting right at 58 feet down here. Now this area back in here had some oaks, some pines, and some other stuff which I've been fighting to get rid of for a time, and I haven't got completely rid of them yet. As we come across here, we're going to cross the 22 feet, which is, or 23 feet, which is the front part of it. We're going to come to an area right in here that I farm. So I'm going to want to take 2 samples back in here and mix those into the samples that I'll be taking out here on my main garden. Now, if you were looking a moment ago, you may have seen these little deals on the ground. Those are from Wide Awake Coffee. They're K-cups, and they are 100% biodegradable. There's no plastic in them. It's all a compressed paper. And I put these down. I was kind of curious how long they'd take to decay when they're not in the ground, and they've taken quite some time, better than 6 months. But in the ground, this would all be gone already. So now let's mark out where we're going to sample, and I'm going to show you that. All right, here we have the garden. Now granted, it's in a shadow. If you look, I have a marker here and here. Over here it is, I believe, right up in here somewhere. It's kind of hard to see the camera screen. And as we go back, let me zoom in on this. You can see the one right here. And then There's one right here, and there's another one I believe right there. As we get to the back, you can clearly see one of them right there. That's in the back over by where the grapes used to be. And then I have put pink tape on these so that these ones way back would show up a little bit. And you can see this other one right back in here somewhere. It's right there. See the pink? That's the last one. Now, the next thing to do is to sample these spots. If you count them out, we got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11 points to check. So the next thing to do is to clean up our equipment. I'm going to tell you how to do it. I'm not going to show you because everybody's washed something in their life. You take 1:9 ratio sodium hypochlorite or Clorox or whatever brand of bleach you use a non-scented to 9 parts water. So if you use 1 cap of bleach, use 9 caps of water to properly get the correct combination that you need to sterilize. Do not make it too strong. I'm not going to get into the microbiological reasons for that, but you want to make sure that when you sample, you're getting a clean, sterile sample. So I'm going to sterilize my equipment. It's going to be a bowl, a rake, and a shovel. And then I'll come back and we'll actually do the sampling. All right, we're going to start our sample first by removing the organic stuff on top. In this case, the organic stuff is going to consist of pine needles, little branches, dead grass, stuff like that, a few plants. If there's a lot of rotted material on top, such as compost and stuff like that, you want to leave that because that's going to be going back into the soil. But things like pine needles, stuff like that, we don't want to put in there. So we've got this kind of clean a little bit. We want to just remove these plants. Hope you can see those plants I'm trying to remove. Just get these plants off. So we don't want them going into our sample. This would be a lot easier if I had a real sharp knife. Now there are a lot of good videos on YouTube about soil sampling. Now you're supposed to make a V cut. In this case, we're going to go down about 6 inches. And now we're going to make a cut at an angle and try to work this sample out of the ground. Now, I want to show you something that's real important. If you look at this soil, use my pencil, we have kind of a lighter color right up here. That means there's very little organic material, but down here it darkens quite a bit. This tells us that there's a lot of organic material right in there, in this upper 1 inch of the soil. So we're going to open this up just a little bit more so we can get our sample. If you notice, this edge right here is pretty much vertically straight down, and this other one is at an angle. What we want to do now is we want to take about 1 inch of soil right here. So we're going to cut our soil. We're going to take our soil and we're going to pull it up. Out of our soil sample, we want to take about a 1 inch wide section of soil. Right here. And we want to get rid of any organic material that's there. In this case, it's a rooting system. If you can see that. These roots are in here. We want all that out. And we drop it in our deal. Now in just a minute we're going to sort this out a little bit. We're going to be removing organic material like this so that all we have inside here is soil. And this is going to take a little while. So now we'll move to our next spot. We're going to do this 11 times. Once we do the 11 times, then we're going to mix this thoroughly, and then we'll get our composite sample from that. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to move to the next spot. We're going to sample that, then I'll do the others off camera. This is one of the spots that's outside of the main garden. This is back here behind where I grow grapes. As you can see, I have a little plant right here. I want to get that out of the way. Scrape off any growing things or pull them out of the ground. Something I found that's working a little better. I go in shallow, come up, shallow, come up, come up. That's working much better. Take about 1 inch of soil. See if you can see what I'm doing. Yep. Take about 1 inch of soil, 6 inches deep. Pull it up, split off until I get about 1 inch wide right in the center of it. This organic stuff, these roots, I'll get out in just a minute. Now, in military soil sampling, you use a sieve to remove particles of a certain size, which would be rocks and things like that. This is not military, so we don't have to do that. Put this in here, break this up, pull out my organic stuff, knock the dirt off of it, the root system. And what we want to do is we want to keep turning this. Try not to spill it like I just did. We want to keep turning this, and when we see organic stuff in here, we want to get rid of it. Now in this case, this root has grown into a piece of wood or something, so just throw that off to the side. Another root. Now as soon as we finish this, we'll keep mixing it each time that we take a sample. As soon as we get finished with this, then we're going to pull off 1 pint for the bag, and the rest of it we're going to save for the little testing kit that I'm about to show you. Having just added my last sample here, every time I've added dirt, I've thoroughly mixed this up, chopped it up. Now this soil is pretty damp, so I'm going to want to get as much organic stuff out as I can. That's going to be your roots or any plants that are inside here. And according to the instructions on the package, I can air dry this for a couple of days to help stabilize the sample. And in just a moment, I'm going to set this out on a tray inside a clean area. I'm going to cover it with a paper towel to keep it clean. And I'm going to let it air dry. I can't put a fan on it, obviously. but I can keep mixing this up. Now this has a high sand content. We're going to get into soil, and the soil consists of sand, clay, or loam. And we're going to get into this in high degrees. It has various phases and things. But what we want to do is we want to sample this for what's inside. So since you've seen me mix this for a minute, let's go over and look at the two tests that we have. And then from there, we will move on to the next step. The soil test. This is a hold-all. I don't know if that's a brand name or whatever. It's a decorative plant accessories. 40 test, directions inside, soil test kit. What this test allows us to test for is pH, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. On your label of your fertilizer, it's going to have like 33, 15, 12. That's going to tell you how much nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium is in that fertilizer. The pH is important because that tells you whether the plant can pull in the cations or the anions. And we're going to be getting into that later, so don't fret that. But the nitrogen, the phosphorus, and the potassium are three macronutrients that plants need. There's some micronutrients, and we'll get into that. And that's where the test kit that we're about to put together on the other one comes in. Now, this pH is critically important. If pH is low, which means it's acidic, you go from 7, which is neutral, down to 1, which is super acidic. Think nitric acid or hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, that kind of thing. Then you come up towards 7, which is water, which is neutral, and then you start becoming alkaline. So acid has a low number, alkaline has a high number. These determine whether the cations and the anions are actually leached out of the soil and whether or not the plant can take up the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. I'll show you a chart on that in just a moment, as well as the micronutrients that it needs. Some of these are like boron, zinc, calcium, so forth. This test only gives you your three major components. So let's look at the other test real quick. Here's hoping you can see it. Starting at the top, we have sheet 1 of, because you may be submitting more than one sample, your name, your mailing address, your city, the county where sampled, which is important because the state tries to keep track of soil samples so that they can update information, a phone number, and an email. The email says it's required. Client name, the name will be included in the information on the received report. And then this is lab use only. Now down here we have numbers 1 through 12. And you send in the amount of money for whatever you want. Down here, tilt the camera just a little bit. Down here, lab use only, your sample ID, right? Your acreage represented. In here, you would take the number of square feet in an acre and then divide it by whatever your garden is. Mine is 23 by 87, so 23 times 87 divided by the amount of acres will give me the percent of an acre. What crop are we growing? In our case, it's going to be garden stuff. Here you mark in whatever test you want done and you send in the money for the sample. Then, if you're growing forage or how used, you'd put this information in. In my case, since I'm growing crops, I would just ignore all this. The back of the page here tells you how to get a sample and then taking a sample reference how to actually do the sample. In my case, you're doing the V-cut and then taking 1 inch off the sides and then taking 1 inch of soil off of that 1 inch right through the center of it, and then how to ship the thing to the place and where to send it to. It also tells you that you can let this stuff air dry. It doesn't say in the sun per se, and if I left this outside it would get rained on. So I'm going to set this out where it can dry, my sample right over here. I'm going to set this out where it can dry, and then I'll be putting this into this nifty bag after I get all the organic stuff out of it. That's going to be roots and sticks and things that may be in there because I compost a lot. And then I'll be sending this off. We will then compare, and this is going to be part 2 of this, we'll then compare what I get off of this versus what I get off of this. Now, there's going to come a point to where micronutrients are important and macronutrients and all kinds of other stuff are important. And I may do a test on that later, but not at this time. So for right now, what we'll do, we're going to let our sample air dry. Then we're going to pack the bag, send it in. At the same time we send it in, we'll be doing this, and that will be part 2 of the soil sampling. And that will be part 2 of soil sampling, and I hope that you'll subscribe and share this link to other people. I think people that don't have a garden can benefit from this information, and I'm trying to provide it in a timely manner. With that said, Dysfunctional Vet out.